Jai Gurudev Niranjan ji.
Jai Gurudev Abhimitha.
So it's a pleasure to be with you this morning. Last session, you spoke about yoga and how it optimizes one's energy and how one can move from the grumbling mind to a more stable and confident person. So this series, we will dive more deeper, and we want to ask you a few more questions related to Patanjali Yoga Sutra. So welcome everyone to the Patanjali Yoga Sutras series 2 with Niranjan ji. So the first question is, what are the different modulations of the mind and how they impact the 7 layers of existence?
The 5 modulations of the mind are number 1. The mind only functions in these 5. In fact, I keep saying, try to think of a 6th. I've been trying it for 16 years. I'm not been able to get it. The first and foremost is getting right knowledge. When we say right knowledge, it could be experiential knowledge, like it's called pratyaksha pramana. I'm saying you over here. I don't need to check out with somebody else or get some kind of documentation to confirm that Abhimitha is sitting in front of me. I don't need to do that. So that is pratyaksha pramana. The second is anumana. For example, as you're talking to me, if suppose you look to your right and you're gesticulating, I can assume that there's somebody over there who's trying to say something to you. You're communicating with somebody. I'm not able to see that somebody, but I know from circumstances that something else could be happening. The third is agama, which are the books. It could be the shastras. It could be books of science. Now, when somebody talks of some great scientific experiment, when scientists say that 99 followed by almost half a dozen nines after that, that percentage of an atom is all space. And it's been confirmed by multiple experiments conducted by scientists globally over the ages, but I have not done that experiment. I have not seen whether so much of an atom is indeed space. It looks almost impossible at first glance for whatever I have experienced of the world. How can you say that this, the hard wood I'm knocking on right now is made up of atoms of carbon, which are all, almost all space? So there is, this is where, you need to believe the right kind of sources, and that is called agama. So the right knowledge is one modulation of the mind. The second is in the realm of possibility, but then it's not true. For example, Gurudev puts it very beautifully. He gives this example of a rabbit that has escaped from your farm. You think that it's jumped over the fence, but then the rabbit has actually crawled from under the fence and it has run away. So what you thought of was in the realm of possibility, but then that's not what happened. Gurudev also very beautifully says that much of the mental chatter that goes on in the human mind is all viparyaya. It's the second one, which means we are always thinking about what somebody else thought about us. And most of the time we are wrong. People don't even have time to think of, they have their own complicated lives to think about. The last thing that should be getting into their minds is, thinking about you and plotting about you. But that's how the mind thinks, right? What did he think about me? Why did that person not smile at me? I was talking to him, but he ignored me. We don't know. Sometimes that person's mind will be so preoccupied, with too many other important things. He didn't pay attention to you, but the mind starts, going on its own trip. So most of these trips are viparyaya. The third is vikalpa. Vikalpa is imagination. It's not there in reality as of now. When you look at life today, it's not reality. So the other beautiful example that comes up, which Gurudev gives us, a rabbit with horns. It doesn't exist. So you can keep thinking about it. We also had a beautiful serial some time ago. It was called Mungeri Lal Ke Haseen Sapne. It's about, we going on our own trips. We think if we were to, head this country, what we would have done. We go on these trips also. So the mind takes you on all these, this Alice in Wonderland trips, and this is all vikalpa. The fourth is something we all love to do. It's nidra, have a good sleep. And the fifth is smriti, or reminiscing on past experiences, thinking of either beautiful times that you had in the past or the bad times. So very beautifully he also says they come in both flavors. All these 5 modulations of the mind, they come in both the flavors. They come as very desirable modulations and as undesirable, klishta, aklishta. So tough ones, klishta is jo kasht deta hai, kashtadai, which gives you pain, and not pain, unpainful ones as well. And he is not saying, get rid of it, fight it. In fact, the definition of yoga is yoga's chitta vritti nirodha, which means that yoga is, the subsiding the modulations of the mind. But that is only at that particular point when you're doing, you're in that yoga sthiti. And he says, why you need to do it? He says, so that drishtuhu swarupe, tada drishtuhu swarupe avasthanam, so that you reside in the form of the observer, or the seer is experienced. So when we look at these 5 modulations of the mind, some are desirable modulations. Even if you look at pramana, which is the first one, right knowledge. We don't need to know everything in life. Sometimes knowing things you really wish you didn't know them, because ignorance is bliss. Why did I get to know it? And then your life is ruined. You get stuck in these things. So klishta, it's painful. Not everything that is right knowledge is, desirable. At the same time, if you look at imagination and, you look at suspicions that go on, a good, detective needs to be very suspicious. He needs to think of all the realms of possibility. It's possible that some of them never happened, but it's also possible that some of them did happen. So viparyaya is very essential. A good sense of viparyaya is needed for one to be a great detective. If you look at a scientist, he is bringing into life things that he has never seen before. It is vikalpa. An iPhone was vikalpa 20 years ago. Nobody knew that something like that could ever happen. These mobile phones. 25 years ago, it was vikalpa. We never thought we could have a Zoom call like this and, discuss knowledge which thousands of people could then benefit from. This was all vikalpa, but it has happened. Today, it is pratyaksha pramana. So at the same time, we can go on a, imaginative spree, mungeri lal, daydreaming all the time. That is not the best way to utilize a beautiful mind. Nidra, if you don't have sleep, all sorts of disorders, mental and physical, creep into the body. But at the same time, you overdo it, it has its own pains that come along with it. And also smritaya. Without smriti, without past memories, you cannot move forward. You'll become like a gajini. You'll have to start writing on your hand and moving around in life. So he has lost his smriti in that. So smriti is needed to move forward in life. At the same time, all the time brooding over the past, or thinking about why things should have happened. Could I have changed it? Gurudev says one of the greatest fallacies of life is what has happened has happened. You cannot change it. What you can do now is in your hands. But most people think that what you do now or what is going to happen in the future in your life, which is completely dependent on what you do now, is destiny. And we talk about the past which has already happened, brood over it, and think of it as if it's free will, as if we could have done something about it, made a difference to it. So we need to get this, we need to turn this around. We need to realize that what's going to happen in the future is our free will. We can make a change to it, positive change to it, make a difference to our lives.
Basically bringing about a balance between the extremes, right?
Absolutely.
Not
Basically
going
that,
to the
and
past. Not
and
going
even
to the past
understanding
all the time, and not going to the future all the time, but finding that right
yes,
balance and then moving in the center.
absolutely. And and when you're in yoga, give a break to everything. Reside in the form of the seer. Why are the asanas performed? Why are pranayamas performed? So that this state of yoga is best achieved when the prana levels are very high in this. When the prana levels are low, actually yoga becomes almost impossible to achieve, because all the negative thoughts start coming up over there, doubts start creeping in, the confusion starts getting in. So even the trigunas, the sattva, rajas and tamas are very much based on the amount of prana we are carrying. The moment the prana level comes down, tamas happens. You'll fall asleep, you'll become slothy, you'll get irritable. All these things will happen. Absolutely. Haziness in the mind. So all that happens. And, to be active in rajas, you need to have higher level of prana. And when the prana level even crosses those limits, that is when the deeper silence dawns on us, the yoga dawns on us. Because the moment we reach those higher planes of prana, that is when we operate at our best. That is one of the things I've realized about yoga is not something about being in the caves or being in the Himalayas. Yoga is about how well you can perform in your life, how well you can take the ups and downs of life, how well you can understand life from a holistic perspective. This is what yoga does to you, for whatever state you are, wherever you are in life, with whatever karmic baggage. And when I say karmic baggage, I'm not talking of some mumbo jumbo or some stuff that you need to believe in. It's about what you have gone through in life. And one of the questions that has been asked, I will repeat, I'll come back to this issue. What we have gone through in life, the painful experiences specifically. In fact, one very beautiful way in which Patanjali explains smriti is, he says smritis are those impressions in your life which are so deep that you cannot let go of them. That's why you remember them. You remember the event that caused that impression. What you're remembering, what you speak out about. If I ask you about your past life and some pleasant memories, you remember the events. In the memory, it is stored as events, but at the deeper consciousness, the reason why those events are still stored is because the impression that those events caused in you were very, very sharp, were very deep. So you have to understand that wherever we are, the good impressions, the bad impressions, that's what really makes our choices today. That's why we are here. So for whatever we have done in the past, for whatever is our age, physical age, whatever is our genetic makeup, whatever is our nationality and stuff like that, yoga, being a yogi, helps you to express yourself in the most optimum way. It balances out everything very beautifully. You don't need to think about it. You'll not need to think or a plan or write down what I'm going to talk or how I'm going to be in the world. You do your yoga, you do your sadhana, and you be with it. That will take care of you. You'll operate from a space which is rich in prana, from where only good things can happen. So that is how we need to understand yoga. So coming to the second part of this question, which is how do they affect? I mean, whether we speak of the 5 levels or we add 3 more levels, which is, ego, memory, and make it 7 or whatever, whatever be the levels, at each and every level, the fact that you can be in yoga, you can silence these 5 and be chitta vritti nirodha, being in yoga and being in the form of the seer, it affects your body, it affects your mind, it affects your intellect, it affects the prana beautifully. It sharpens your memory, it sharpens your sensory understanding of your senses become sharper. So there's this wonderful violinist called Yehudi Menuhin. He was an Israeli violinist, and everybody knew him. He's very famous. You can Google up for Yehudi Menuhin. And he was a great violinist. And somewhere on the way, he met, in his life, he met B.K. Iyengar, and he learned yoga from him. And after that, after he got onto this path of yoga, he used to say that, Iyengar was his true violin guru. Though he never taught him violin, but he taught him yoga, and yoga made him a far better student, because to be a great student, you need to be a great observer. That being in the state of the seer, seeing not just the external world, but seeing your own mind, how it is functioning, how it is telling you things, and how it is behaving with you, observing your own prana, your own breath, observing your own body. We do all these step by step when we do our meditations. That is what really helps us become far more fruitful in this world, even at our professional levels. So he said that, the people who taught me violin, they were only my teachers, but my true violin guru was my yoga guru. So yoga is so deep. It's only when you continuously stay on the path, when you stick with it, you realize the kind of immense and very deep benefits that it brings to you in life, in all spheres of your life. So the complete blossoming, live life fully, at the same time, understanding it both from a perspective of doing these practices, as well as being very dispassionate, realizing the truth that everything that you want cannot happen the way you want it to be, because the life as a process has its own intelligence. It has its, it has the greater intelligence exists, which is, you can call it as the integral of all the individual intelligence in the world. So that exists, and that has, that finally it works out things the way it wants to. So that higher and the greater dimension of understanding, the more holistic understanding of life itself, that is what affects us in all, in whichever angle we would like to see ourselves, whether as body, as prana, as mind, as intellect, as ego, memory, and finally the self, which is, that is the hidden key, the key in our pockets that we have been trying to find everywhere else, but in every other place other than our own pockets. So, yoga gives you that. That brilliant ability. So that is how these 5 vrittis, and how we can make best use of them. How yoga helps you, bring out the best of your vrittis, and also affect you at every plane of existence that we have been able to analyze and document so far.
So that brings us to the second question, which is, please talk about the different sequences of yoga, which you mentioned earlier, like we have bending, stretching, squeezing, twisting, and inversions, and how they impact the body, especially the lymphatic system, which you emphasized in the last talk.
Yeah. So let's look at any asana, and let's take an example. One of the asanas I personally respect a lot is the Matsyendra asana. We are able to do Ardha Matsyendra, Purna Matsyendra is even more difficult. But let's look at a small history of this asana itself. We all know about the Gorkhas of Nepal. Now, the reason why they got that name Gorkha is because of their guru called Gorakhnath. Now there is an asana called Gorakshasana also. And he had a guru called Matsyendranath, and he gave this gift of Matsyendra asana to the world. So if you look at all the asanas that we have, I'm telling you, they are all the gifts of great rishis, great yogis of the past. And we are so fortunate, we are getting it all. In those days, those disciples would have just got some 3 or 4 asanas or 5 asanas. Today we have an entire plethora of them, each of them developed and worked upon through centuries by yogis. And finally, 2 great yogis. One was Pandit Swatmarama, who wrote Hatha Yoga Pradipika in the 13th century, and the second was called Rishi Gheranda, who wrote Gheranda Samhita. There are others as well, but these are the 2 epoch-making yogic texts that focus on asana and pranayama a lot. And they documented all this and explained in shlokas how each asana has to be performed and stuff like that. So if you look at Ardha Matsyendrasana, it's a spinal twist, but it's a seated spinal twist. When you're twisting and then you move your hand across your legs and hold your toes, what is happening? The entire visceral system, everything below the diaphragm is not only twisted, but it's also squeezed. And then you do something very brilliant. You stay in this pose, and then you take deep breaths. What is happening when you're taking these deep breaths? The diaphragm moves down every time you breathe. And when you breathe in slowly, and observe how the pressure of the diaphragm starts moving down and starts affecting the entire torso. Right up to the perineum, from your, from this point, right up to the bottom of your body, you'll be able to see how everything over there, the liver, the kidneys, the adrenal glands, the spleen, the intestines, the bladder for women, the entire, the uterus and all those, organs associated with it. Every one of them gets a beautiful massage. So you're twisted, you're squeezed, and then in that state, you're actually pressing it down, up and down, giving it a massage, using your diaphragm, using your breath, you're doing this. And every time you're doing this, you'll realize you're breathing in very, very deep. The Ujjayi breath is happening. So the kind of oxygen that you're supplying to these parts, the kind of cleansing that's happening at a tissue level, at a cellular level, it is very salutary, it's very therapeutic. And you need to just do this experiments and understand yourself. What is happening, how these asanas are, and all the time you're in the form of the Seer. All the time you're just observing what's happening. You're not bringing in your opinions or thinking of what somebody said will happen to it. No, you're just observing. But post observation, you can write down your experiences, write down what you experienced and say, wow, this is what happened. The twist was there, the squeeze was there, using my breath and using the diaphragm, the entire areas internally we are massaging. And what happens when you're doing it is, the prana is moving all over, your awareness is going to all these different points. And that is what, these are some of the deeper secrets of yogasanas, how you need to do them, continuously being in the state of the observer. And every time you do a pose, there is, the prana gets locked up in different parts of the body, which are very, very specific to that asana. So when you do something like Paschimottanasana, the parts of the body where the prana get locked are very different. When you do Purvottanasana or when you do, Matsyendrasana. So when you do all this, and then when observing how you get into this posture, staying in that posture, breathing deep in that posture, observing your mind, because sometimes when the asana gets a little more difficult, the mind starts complaining. It says, come, let's get out of it. Observing that mind as well. And staying in the asana, how long do you stay in it? Till you're very comfortable. Sthiram sukham asana. You experience that sukha, fine. Another 2 more breaths, and then you slowly come out of it. And when you come out of it, observe how that, that if that pranic circuit which you had enabled, it unwinds and comes back to the normal circuit in which it normally flows. And that particular point of turn, that movement from circuit A to circuit B, that when you're observing that, this is where you understand your own system so beautifully at such depth, and you realize, the whole process becomes very meditative when you do it. So when we say do your asanas meditatively, it's by, following all the instructions. You're using everything. You're using your body, you're using your prana, you're using your mind, because without the mind, you'll not be doing the right things. You're using your intellect. And, finally, you're staying in the form of the observer. And that is very essential. It's when you're finally in that state of the observer and nothing else. That is when, the asana has fulfilled its purpose. And then you move on to the other asanas. So whether you bend, whether you're squeezed, whether you do inversions, it gives you a sense of balance in this world. All these inversions require a beautiful sense of balance. A Shirshasana is an amazing balance. If you look at, even Sarvangasana, which is the shoulder stand, it's a beautiful balance. It's an inversion. The moment the heart comes, below the hip level, usually a heart level is always above the hip level, but the moment you do the inversion, you're inverting that relationship. And the heart goes down and the hips come up. So the moment you do some of these things, the effect on the heart, the circulatory system, the heart, as well as the lymphatic system is very, very deep. So understand some of these systems, understand what that lymphatic system is doing. It's the sewerage system of the body. It's taking away all the waste from the cells. Cells are dying every day. Gurudev says every year, the body that you had 365 days ago, you don't have that today. Everybody says this. Some may differ in the time. Some say that the skeletal system takes a longer time to be completely regenerated. But at the end of the day, what we need to realize is we are continuously changing. We are like rivers. In fact, Buddha said you cannot put your foot in the same river twice because the water has changed. So our bodies are like rivers, continuously flowing. There are some videos I've seen where doctors are explaining that every day, the weight of your body that you regenerate is equal to the weight of a hand, which is around 14-15% of your weight. It's just that much of it is the water content and things like that. And different cells have different lifespans. The cells on your tongue, they change every 11 days. The blood cells, they have a lifespan of 120 days. So every piece of you has its own lifespan. And then finally, man is supposed to, ideally live for 100 years in Kali Yuga. So, but each of the systems have their own lifespans. They have their own things. So how asana affects, how pranayama affects, understanding prana itself is such a beautiful thing. I'm telling you, even Patanjali, he says it in many, many different ways. He says who to avoid, not only who to befriend, but who to avoid. He says, sukha dukkha, punya apunya. So there are 4 types of people in this world. The ones who are in great joy, the ones who are sad. The third one, he says, the ones who do a lot of social service, who are helping others. And the last ones are the criminals. And he says the last one, just avoid them. Don't be with them. So with the sukha, he says, maitri, be friendly with them. With those who are sad, he says, he doesn't say be friendly with them. He says be compassionate with them. And the punya, he says mudita, feel happy for them, because if you don't feel happy for people who are doing great in life, then jealousy develops in you. So when you follow some of these simple pointers, you'll realize that he's trying to help you maintain a high level of prana. Don't be in groups where negative things are spoken, where there's too much of argument happening, bad words being used. Observe those kind of people and stay away from them, because end of the day, you can only save yourself. And you can be an example for others. Oh wow, he's like that. I also want to be like that person. So you be an example whenever the opportunity comes, spread the knowledge. At the same time, know what to have and what to avoid, like, nectar and poison. So all this helps a ton in, overall in yoga, in your own life, making it far more beautiful and being happy and blissed all the time. So it won't happen all the time, but at least most of the time you should try to keep increasing that the state in which you're in a blissful state for much longer than what you already are at. So that's the aim of yoga. And as you keep being on the path, as Patanjali says, giving that asana, that 100% of your attention and doing it the right way, that is satkara seva. Then he says Dhrida Bhumi, then it will automatically take root in you. You don't need to worry about some of these things, whether I'm compassionate, do I have enough devotion, do I have enough of equanimity in me. You don't need to worry about these things. These things will happen to you. What is there in your hand is to ensure that you understand all this and you do your yoga regularly, so that all these things happen in you and you can manifest to your best potential in life.
So with that, we will move to the next question, which is, how does a pattern or a vasana form, and how does it impact in shaping the personality of a person?
One is, if you look at various kind of karmas, are like actually seeds that we throw, and they will sprout. They'll take that. Some take a long time. Gurudev says, you want a mango tree, you have to, you plant a seed, you'll reap its fruits only 20 years later, 30 years later. But if you sow alpha, within minutes it starts sprouting. So the best, so some karma, that is the nature of it. So when you touch a live electric wire, the karma phala is given to you pronto. At the speed of light, you'll get it. But at the same time, you do certain other things and you feel, hey, nothing's happening to me. I'm living the life I want. Who cares? And, but then what you throw into this universe comes back to you manifold. And that's the cycle of life itself. So coming to this question of vasanas, see, there are three aspects to karma. We use the word karma very generally, but karma is just action. The second is vipaka. Vipaka means the reaction to the action. And the third is amazing. It's called ashaya. Ashaya is the impression that this reaction is caused on your psyche. So if I have touched a live wire, so when I was very small, I went and, touched a live wire. I got a terrible shock. And after that, I never went to touch that live. Now that has become part of my samskara. It's part of my vasanas are nothing but deep impressions in us. Though we use the word vasana only in certain contexts, the actual meaning is a very deep sanskara, a very deep impression in us. So if you look at our very understanding of what is good, what is bad, what we love to do, what we avoid, it's completely channeled by both a general public understanding of what is right and wrong, as well as our own individual experience of life, where we have experienced, be careful of certain kind of guys, or be careful of why are we so careful of letting our children party away or do what they want, because we have seen life and we realize that bad things happen, and when they happen we don't want them to happen. That's a very deep negative impression that has developed in us, and that plays itself out through the decisions we make in life. So whatever are the vasanas, whatever are the deeper impressions, they have been all caused both by our own experiences of life, as well as things like the law of the land. We tell, don't break the law, because though you may have never gone to jail, you know that if you break the law and do stupid things, you will be put in jail. So that we know that. So there are certain events of life are very desirable to us. We really want those things to happen, and certain things we want to avoid at all costs. So these actually cause deep impressions in our mind, and they play themselves out as our choices of life. So vasanas and these impressions also cause we become either very joyful about certain things or very fearful about others. All our fears are all based on these vasanas itself. All our deep desires are based on these vasanas. So all these things, over a period of time, one is to live with them. We cannot get rid of all of them. But yoga helps you deprogram. Yoga helps you be a little more fearless, so as you can experiment. You can check out what happens. You don't need to believe, because everything is not in your realm of experience. A lot of it is also based on what your fathers have said, your forefathers have said. So it is said that when a guy called David Livingstone went to Africa, there was this great Victoria Falls, and there was a tribe living not too far away, and that Victoria Falls used to make such a roaring sound. The tribals used to think it was a devil or a demon over there screaming its heart out. You should never go near that place. So they had been told this by their forefathers, and none of them had gone. None of them knew it was a beautiful waterfall. None. And they lived very close to it. They could hear its roar, but they thought it was, a ghost or a demon or something, and they never went there. So sometimes we need to step out of you need to be fearless. You need to step out. You need to check out. You need to find out if what has been told to me is true or not. Specifically, those issues which are in the realm of belief. Many people, feel, for example, and I've seen this. Parents keep telling us, and sometimes they tell us the same thing so many times, we become rebellious, and we start believing internally that they are wrong on some of these things. So you need to rediscover things yourself. For example, I myself had stopped going to temples. I didn't believe. I felt it was, why should you do that? You say God is everywhere. Then why do you need to go to temple? But yoga actually opened out many things, made me more observant of what happens to me when I go to a temple, the breath patterns, how the pranic level is, attempted to be increased through all your five senses, whether it's the cool flooring on which you're walking, whether it is the beautiful fragrances of jasmine, of camphor that are coming. Observe what happens when you smell that. The pranic level goes up. The tirtha, that is given in the temple, it has tulsi, it has got camphor. Then it's got 2 or 3 other ingredients. The moment you have it, just observe what is happening within. The sight of the darshana of the murti, when you're doing that darshana, when that happens, what is happening with you? When you do that with faith, not with an unnecessary questions in your mind, but when you do that with faith, what is happening to you? So every level of your every sheath of existence is being affected, right? It's affecting your body, it's affecting your mind, it's affecting your prana, it's affecting your intellect. All these things actually yogas, they're attempting to bring yoga into you because these things are all silenced. There's no thought. Then finally the bell rings and immediately the mind quietens. So I realized that our ancestors have really thought this out so beautifully. Everybody cannot be sitting and doing, at least in those days when there was no means of fast transport and stuff, people were walking miles together to go to their workplace, working so hard. All you could do was just give them a strong belief system which said that, at least spend 10 minutes every day morning in the temple before you start out and all this. And when you walked into, right from the time you walk into the temple till you come out of it, the entire attempt was through your five senses, which are always going out, using the same pathway to take you within, not, at least for some time, so that the rest of the day is spent beautifully. The sattva increases in you, the prana increases in you, and you get into that yogic state, even if it is for a short while, 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, then finally the rest of the day is spent beautifully. So again, I come back to this thing of being a keen observer, of being a great observer, which is what yoga is all about. It is to make you reside in the form of the seer. And what is happening when you reside in the form of the seer? It is for every person on this path to, do this, go through the process and come out with his, her or his own understandings and share it with the world. That's how, yoga, if you look at it, is it's not a final book, right? We cannot say that Patanjali's understanding is the final understanding. It is a great understanding. It was a great first step. And after that, so many rishis have come with the asanas and understood, they've taken those, that framework which he gave in the Yoga Sutras, and they've built on that framework. They've added their own, wealth of knowledge to it. And today we are so fortunate. We are at a point where, everything is already cooked and being given to us very beautifully. All you have to do is the simple thing of, just consuming it. You don't need to do all the hard work. The hard work has been done. So everyone needs to do this. Everyone needs to go through this process and share your understanding, share your key takeaways on the subject with the world, and make it a better world, because mind is where it all starts. We feel that by indoctrinating people about what is good and bad, it's going to help. As I said, especially when elders tell us something, we become very rebellious. It's very essential that we do things ourselves without actually, I always say that the body is it's like a laboratory. So without blowing up the lab, do your small little experiments smartly, intelligently, with some guidance. If you need it, ask from people who you trust, and make your life more fruitful, more beautiful.
So, with a lot of respect, gratitude, and awareness, we need to dive deep into it, and then come, like Gurudev says, right? Once we come in touch with our own boundaries, from there recognize that with awareness and then move forward.
Absolutely. Because if you ask your own self why I don't want to do something, most of the time it is because I'm very happy in my comfort zone. So yoga is not just about stretching that body, stretching that limb, and doing into that. There's a message over there, and that message is, do that. You're stretching out of your comfort zone in the asana, and similarly stretch out of your comfort zone in life as well, so that you can make it better. And Gurudev always says, if you are not willing to step out of your comfort zone, nothing great is going to happen. So all great things have happened when you're stepped out of your comfort zone. So do that.
So that brings us to the next question, which is about craving and aversion. So could you brief us about what exactly is craving and aversion, and how it affects us in both positive and negative ways?
See, anything that we have developed a deep taste for, it ends up as a craving. There are certain experiences that we want to repeat. Gurudev always says that the mind's desires to enjoy are boundless, they are limitless. But the body's ability to deliver on this expectation is highly limited. Okay, people want to listen to music full day with their headphones on. What has happened? I mean, you'll end up with ear problems, your eardrums get affected. I mean, I don't need to get into this. You keep on eating, and he says there are eating disorders like bulimia, where people actually, they want to eat, their stomach is full, they want to eat something, and so they throw up and they go and eat. There's no end to these vikritis, what I would say. You go beyond the normal, and then you damage the system in the process. So anything that initially gives you that kick, but damages your system in the long run, we should avoid it. That you just need to just take a step back, sit down calmly, and think whether habits such as all the substance abuse that is so rampant today. Have you seen any of those guys do something great after a while? I mean, they have crashed, right? They have faced the music. They've become a liability to their parents and to society. Does it help? Does, instead of, looking at getting addicted to that, I would say use yoga as an addiction. If really addiction is so much of a thing that we all need to let's get addicted to some good stuff in life, and understand the system. If you look at Patanjali's whole work, it's about helping you understand yourself better. What is this mind? What is happening in it? The panchavrittis, the painful, the not so painful. So when you mull over this knowledge, you realize so much yourself. You don't need any more guidance on that, especially with respect to cravings, aversions. Aversions, a lot of them are based on judgments. A lot of what we think is right or wrong is not based so much on our own experience of it, as much as it is based on the indoctrination that we undergo willy-nilly. So whatever is told to a child between the ages of around 4 to 5 till around 8 or 9, it gets burnt into the psyche of the child. And after that, even if that child goes to Stanford or Harvard or wherever, some of these things will never leave you. Now, if you look at it positively, some of the things like your comfort food, whatever your mother used to cook, it is always such a craving for all of us. So these things are very good cravings to have. Being averse to substance abuse, or being averse to unlawful things, these are good aversions to have. Don't get into it. At the same time, either the craving or the aversion that actually causes you and this is a big thing in the world right now, where it is Gurudev even says we need to have a mind that is free from not just cravings and aversions, but also being deeply opinionated about others based on a belief system. So we have to be careful about it, where then it becomes very easy to commit all sorts of crimes on people who are not like you, just because they're different from you. And we need to think over it, mull over it. And that is one of the most beautiful meanings of Samadhi. Dhi is intellect, which tells you this is right, this is wrong. Craving and the aversion and all that. That's all at an intellectual level, and our ability to understand it from that perspective. So Samadhi means being equanimous, an intellect which is very equanimous. An equanimous intellect is one that is all accepting. Even if there are certain things you want to change in this world, first you accept it. So even Krishna tells Arjuna, fight the war, but without jwara, without the feverishness. Fight it because you have thought through it, you have gone through the process, you have tried to make peace, you know what this, it is injustice you're fighting against. So now finally, the last option has been given to you, which was war. We tried, any number of times to make the peace, and it's not happened. So now the war has come, don't run away from it. So we have to, think through these things very consciously. And yoga is a great way to think calmly. In fact, even good people, if you look at some of the militant organizations, terrorist organizations, they've all actually started with great, aims to fulfill. But they have all landed up in some other place, and that is because they did not come from a great space. So even if you want to do something good about the world, if your state of mind is not blissful, there's no calmness in it, then only stupid ideas only will come in such a mind. So it's not blaming individuals, it's understanding the nature of the mind and how yoga affects it, and helps you be better, and through you can make the world better. Never underestimate your own self. So there's a saying that we always overestimate our ability to change others and underestimate our ability to change our own selves. So turn that around. Be the change you want to see, as Gandhi said, and let others see you and say,
running behind other people with a stick to change them.
Don't change
ourselves.
And use that stick on yourself. So the first line of yoga is Atha Yoga Anushasana. It's an Anushasana. So very beautiful Sanskrit word. Shasana means ruling over somebody else. Anushasana means ruling over your own self. So it's a discipline. It is where, and discipline doesn't come naturally. Gurudev always says to go and hug your mother, you don't need a discipline. But to brush your teeth, you needed a discipline. It took years of coaxing and scolding from parents for us to actually be able to build that discipline in us. So just as we have dental hygiene, yoga is the mental hygiene. So it's a discipline. We need to inculcate it in our lives and make it a part of it. Don't, it's a mind thing, there's a lot of resistance. There's a lot of comfort in sleeping another 2 hours and not doing your yoga, but you need to walk out of it because it is that short-term pain that leads to tremendous and unbelievable long-term gains. So another very beautiful shloka from the Yoga Sutras is Heyam Dukkham Anagatam, which means that the pain that has not yet come in your life is destroyed by yoga. It's like a riddle virtually. I mean, what do you mean the pain that has not yet come? Pains are going to come. As we age, all sorts of illnesses will affect us. But a person who has been on this path of yoga, the way it affects them and the way it affects those who are not on this path is completely different. Both at a mind level as well as a body level. You can look at it, you can just check it out. Even that's why Gurudev says there's no dearth of good people in the world, but there's a dearth of wise people in the world. So wisdom is that holistic understanding, that deeper understanding, that broader understanding of the world of which you are an integral part of. And you being the wave, to understand what the ocean is made up of, you don't need to go and dry boil the oceans. You can just take a little water from one wave, which is yourself, understand it in all thoroughness, and you've understood life. So that is how yoga operates.
So that by understanding what is craving and aversion, let's move into the next question. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that attachment to sense objects gives rise to desire. Yeah. And then unfulfilled desires cause anger. From anger comes delusion. From delusion comes loss of memory. And then comes destruction of one's viveka, which is
Yeah.
discrimination. So
Yeah.
most of us these days, from children to adults, we are all addicted to social media and mobile. So which are what are sense objects, and what causes the mind to reach such a delusional state? So social media and mobile is just an example of
Yeah.
sense objects. So how do we prevent us from getting into that delusional state?
One is through a broader understanding. So Gurudev tells this very beautiful story about Mullah Nasruddin, who was a wise man in Baghdad. And once he was going around the town in a horse, and he said hi to all the shopkeepers, friends who he met on the way. They all said hi. Then he went second round. Again, he said hi to them. After some 3 or 4 rounds, they became curious and they asked Mullah, what are you doing? So he said, why are you asking me? Ask the horse. So, why are you going round and round the town? Don't ask me, ask the horse. So that is what happens with many of the desires. As far as we are in control of them, it's fine. But the day it becomes like the horse of Mullah Nasruddin, then we are in trouble. Then we are not in control. And the moment you're not in control, you must be ready to be flung in whichever direction the vehicle of which are not in control is going to throw you in, right? So again, I come back to this, and I'll come back to this because it's actually simple and it's the root of everything. It's the state of mind. And whatever good in this world you see, just observe it is somebody's mind. If you look at amazing buildings that have been built all over, it is somebody's mind. If it did not come in somebody's mind, it would never have come up at all as as that skyscraper or whatever. And you look at all the destructive activities, flying those planes into those buildings, destroying them. That's also somebody's mind. It is the mind which is everything in human life. If we can take care of that, if you have got it, half the problem resolved. If you attend to it, all the problems resolved. So work on that mind. And as I said in my last talk as well, that whenever we praise Patanjali, we don't say you made us very healthy through yoga. We say you gave us a great mind through yoga. Yogena chittasya Padena Vacham. He was a great Sanskrit scholar, so he wrote books on Sanskrit grammar. So Padena Vacham, Malam Sharirasya cha. So he wrote beautiful books in Ayurveda. So they say you got rid of the diseases through your books on Ayurveda. Malam Sharirasya cha Vaidyakena, through your books on Vaidyakiya. So Yopa Karotam Pravaram Munina Patanjali Pranjali Rana Dosmi. So I bow my folded hands to Patanjali and thank him for all this. So it's a prayer of gratitude. It's a prayer of understanding the great man. His what are his contributions to human society. And when we list out those contributions, the first is his contribution to the mind through yoga. So, attend to that mind, come out of your comfort zone, have a dedicated, a continuous practice. Don't try to do, some 2 hours of yoga one day and then the mind will come back and tell you next morning when you wake up, you've done 2 hours. For the next 3 days, you can sleep and then you don't do it. So the Nairantarya, the continuity gets broken. Continuity is very, very important in all this. Continuity, respectfulness, doing it, giving it your 100% when you're doing it. So even when you have to, just raise an arm, Gurudev explains it so beautifully how you should, do it with complete attention and respect. Respect is not something, some emotional mumbo jumbo. It's just giving your 100% attention. So even when we say give quality time to your children, it is that for that time, you're listening to them completely. You're giving 100% time of your attention to them. not trying to, interfere with what they're trying to say and trying to correct them. No. You'll first listen to them. You give them your full attention. That is called giving quality time. So even in yoga, give it your quality time. Start small. Start something that is sustainable. Don't try to something very huge which is not sustainable. Then your body will rebel. So take baby steps out of your comfort zone. Finally, the aim of yoga is that you're comfortable in every zone. Whatever life throws at you, it's within the realm of your and understanding of your comfort zone. So that's the ultimate goal to realize, where samadhi or the equanimous intellect is experienced. But even when we do our yoga, the sadhana, you experience samadhi in small measure. Gurudev always says, after Kriya, you will be experiencing samadhi. So observe those states. Be in the state of that observer. Observe how beautiful the state is when Kriya is just completed. So do that every day. Work on it, and and be conscious. The more aware you are, the higher the levels of prana, the lighter the food we eat. Don't have all this very heavy food all the time. Today's world is such that it, in the name of nutrition and nourishment, they are really filling you with a lot of processed foods. Be aware of them. Increase your knowledge about all this. Work on your company. The Sukha Dukkha Punya Punya, very important sutra in yoga. And always remember, do your yoga so that you don't get into trouble. Heyam dukkham anagata. That even before the dukkha has come into your life, it has been destroyed. So to lead a happy, contented, and a strong life. In fact, at one point he even says, tells you that Rupa Lavanya, he says, even good looks and shining skin, the Lavanya is the glow on your skin. Rupa is good looks. So Rupa Lavanya Balavajra, the strength of a diamond. Samananvyatani, the equanimity in mind. Kaya Sampat, they become your property. He says, this becomes your property of a yogi. So work on all these things. Do it yourself and let it be a part of your experience. Whatever I am speaking or whatever anyone says should only be a trigger for you to start out on your own journey. So that's at the end of the Buddha's life, his disciple Ananda started crying and saying, you're leaving and we'll all be orphaned. So he said, be a light unto yourself. That was the Buddha's last message. But if you look at the message that comes through yoga, it is to be a scientist unto yourself. Do your little experiments, do your, and go through with boldness, face life, and do it through yoga, because that is where, a lot of treasures lie, which help you in every which way. So, I'll repeat this, Yehudi Menuhin called his yoga guru as his true violin guru. He said, everybody else was an instructor, but my yoga guru was the one who taught me the depths of playing the violin. So whatever you do in life, it automatically reflects on it, because that's a very beautiful word in Sanskrit, and we use it all the time. It's for ability. It's called yogyata. We say ye yogya hai ya ye ayogya hai. So what is yoga? Yoga, in one of the meanings of yoga, is also your ability to become one with. So if you are able to become one with your violin, you and your violin are one and the same, then that yoga has happened with the violin. So that yogyata, that deservedness, that ability has been gifted to you. So whatever you're doing in life, when you do it with awareness, when you do it with mindfulness, with full consciousness, these are the gifts of your yoga practice. Then the way you operate in the world, the success that follows, the undying smile, as Gurudev says, the true sign of success is that undying smile. That comes with equanimity. When you know that this can happen, that can happen, but then you've relished, you've enjoyed the process. You've enjoyed the process of playing the violin, whether the audience clapped or gave you a standing ovation after that or not, is immaterial.
So life is basically not going to be a bed of roses at all. We need to understand, push ourselves out of the comfort zone, and then
Yeah.
move forward with the help of yoga, which is
Absolutely.
where the yoga comes as a tool.
It's
Like
a
we
great tool.
mentioned earlier,
Yes.
it's a user manual,
Yes.
Patanjali
Yes.
Yoga Sutras.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the next question. So I have done a couple of yoga sessions with our teachers from the Art of Living. So there I got to know, which was very surprising for me, that if the hip is tight, it means that one is going through emotional turbulence. So how does memory get stored in different parts of the body, and how do we open up those regions? Like
Actually, if you look at emotions itself, body is a lot of chemistry as well, right? We all say that that is the chemistry right. We always use that word in English. So the reason is also that when you're feeling good, you have all these dopamines, and there are many chemicals that are generated in your body. And that's true of the reverse as well. When you're deeply pained, the stresses start building up in certain points in your body, and then they manifest as illnesses. So they say that if you have a great, if the sense of responsibility is overwhelming you, you feel that the entire weight of responsibilities on your shoulders, you start developing upper back pains, you develop shoulder pains. This is a fact. I mean, a lot of research happening on all this, books have been written on all this, tells you if for every illness what is the corresponding thought pattern that caused this illness. So one is being aware of it, know that this is what it is. And, because of all these beautiful yogic practices, we are able to, address it through another way, right? Your emotions caused you physical pain, but using the same physicality, using that body through asana, through pranayama, you're coming out of it, you're opening it out, you're giving it a release. So, a good asana practice is a great detoxifier. At the end of it, you should feel detoxed. Then you know you have your asana practice has been great. Wow, you should get that wow feeling. Wow, feel completely detoxed. All the positive hormones and positive chemicals, dopamine and all that, your body is flush with them. So when you do that, that's the way to come out of it. What is this knowledge? If the knowledge is correct, whatever you said, that certain of these stresses, they get locked up in different joints of the body. But a body that is, that is why mental hygiene, right? So Gurudev says dental hygiene, like that, mental hygiene. So be with your sadhana, and that'll go a great way in ensuring that you're living optimally, you're living the best life that you could ever dream of.
Like Gurudev says that to calm the mind, we need to move from a state of question to wonder. So does yoga help us to get into that state? Wow.
Yeah, in fact, the Sanskrit word for wow is Vismaya in Sanskrit. So the Shiva Sutras say that Vismayo Yoga Bhumika. Vismaya or wonderment is the basic of yoga. If you cannot look at the world around you, you cannot, look at the beautiful flowers, the beautiful birds, their immensely beautiful songs, and say, wow. If you cannot say this, then we are really stuck very badly in some of the problems of life. But this is where it all starts. So actually, this vowness is the fundamental. It's the basic of yoga itself. So definitely, as we progress on the path, with a lot of our own, most of the mind itself is such that it will tell you things are not right, and invent a new reason to feel sad in your life at every step of the way. But if you can override it, using yoga, using your sadhana, and calm it down and move beyond the smallness of life, that is when the beauty of life, you're able to see it. It was always there. It's just that, yoga will give you those eyes to see it, to behold it. So there's one of the understandings of, Krishna's Vishwarupa Darshana, is that, Arjuna saw Krishna was like this, Krishna was like that. And, he saw that amazing thing that's explained in the Gita. The other thing also is that Arjuna saw Vishwa as his rupa, that the whole world was only him, including the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, when you get that wider vision, the greater vision, automatically, some of these things fall in place. You don't need to work too hard to attain them.
You beautifully put it, put the statement where you said that when Krishna's Vishwarupam, when Arjuna experienced. So we also, Gurudev always says that have a broader vision. So that's when from the grumbling mind, we can move into more responsible mind.
True. He also says, expand your ego, right? Yes. He says, don't think of only your family. Think of the world as your family and let your problems be big. Think of what we can do to solve the world's problem. That's where we can add value, and we are all capable of it.
Yeah. So you have mentioned a couple of times about Samadhi in our talk and previous talk as well. And you said that Samadhi is that state where the mind is equanimous. So how, during meditation, all of us are meditating, are doing our sadhana regularly. How do we recognize that we have reached that state of Samadhi? And what are the different types?
Kinds of Samadhis. Again, I'll going back to the Yoga Sutras. We look at Patanjali. What he has spoken of are his own experiences. He has put in words what he has experienced in his life. So if you look at and it's these experiments are, and they are not overnight. They've taken a very long time. So if you look at a National Geographic or a Discovery Channel cameraman, they all come out with this half an hour or 1 hour beautiful little documentaries on a leopard or a tiger or something like that. But he has been following this animal for years together. He has risked his life at many times. He has not slept for many nights. He has followed them through the night, through its travels, through its entire life cycle. And then finally, after years and years of that tapasya, what do you enjoy? You enjoy half an hour, 1 hour, and you say, what a brilliant piece of work this is. Here in yoga, that camera that has been completely turned on your own self. You have observed your mind, your body, your intellect, the way the mind works. That is why he's so accurate. I keep telling, look at those panchavrittis and tell me if there is a sixth one. In fact, the sixth one is meditation, and the 5 have actually been completely, Chittavritti Nirodha has happened. Then Drishtu Swarupya Avasthanam is there. But there's nothing beyond it. It's so accurate. That's because he invested a lifetime in observing himself. So that is, how I look at the Yoga Sutras, and he speaks of Samadhi both at a point where you're completely, you have lost the small individual self has completely melted. The wave no longer thinks of itself as the wave, but it's become the ocean. So that's one, it's known as the Nirvikalpa Samadhi, where no thoughts, nothing. Then there's a Savikalpa Samadhi. There are, Samadhis like Ritambara Pragya Samadhi, where you become very knowledgeable. Gurudev says Ritambara is like a cloud of knowledge. You are rich with it, and that's another kind of Samadhi that you enter. So when we say equanimous intellect itself, we need to, it speaks a lot, right? It means that your intellectual horizons have broadened tremendously. It is not about, sitting in some cave and talking about some rishi who has gained enlightenment, quote unquote, and he's no longer to be seen. He has disappeared. And let's leave that. Let's talk about our own lives, how we can enrich it, and how we can make things better for the world around us. And that is the practical, knowledge that Gurudev always gives. He never says, go away to him. Even his understanding of Kailasha, his understanding of Kashi and all are so beautiful, so different, so yogic in perspective. He says, the point between our eyebrows is where Kashi is. And it's realized when both the breaths are, both the left and the right nostrils are balanced. And he says, Kailasha is Kevala Ullasa. Ullasa means rejoicement. So when there's nothing else but rejoicement, then you have gained Kailasa. So we need to, all these, I understand where some of these questions come from, because there's a lot of, what shall I say? There's a lot of wowness around. There's a lot of secrecy surrounding some of these things. We feel it's only for special people. It's not for us. Some rishi did it somewhere. No, it is, it is to enrich our lives. I'll keep repeating some of these things because it's very essential that the point is, it goes through to everyone, that the whole thing of yoga is to ensure that you live optimally. The best of you is available to you at any given point of time. So to yourself and the world, the best of you will be revealed. The best of you will blossom out. You'll do the best, whether it's playing a violin or writing your code or singing or dancing. Yoga will raise the level from where you operate. And that is very essential in life. There's a very beautiful saying by Albert Einstein. He said, whatever are the problems you see in the world, they've been caused by a particular level of mind. And the answers for that will never be found at that same level. So most of us are trying to find answers to problems at the same level of mind which has created those problems. So the answer to that is to raise your consciousness. And how do you do that? Through yoga, through asana, through pranayama. Raise that level of spirit, that level of prana in you. It is said that, Gurudev always says that, stones are at one level of, 1 unit of prana. Air is at 2, or I'm not very accurate on this, but I'll tell you what it is. Water is at 3, fire is at 4, space is at 5, and now come the plants. They are at 6, animals are at 7, and humans are at 8. But the beauty about the human life is your structure can manage up to 16 units of prana, and every time the pranic levels get elevated, the way you see and perceive this world and understand this world starts changing. So it is very essential that we all walk beyond that, move beyond 8 units. and live up to our full potential. That's why Krishna, who was at 16 units, is known as a Purna Avatara. Rama was at 12 units, and see how great he was. Hanumanji was at 14. So Gurudev always jokes that the one who helped God himself must be more powerful. So he's at 14 units. He's known as Prana Raya, the Lord of Prana. That is why, air, which is, the chief carrier of Prana. That is why Hanuman was Vayuputra, and Bhima was also Vayuputra. Gives amazing strength, and the subtlest is the most powerful. Gurudev always says that. We feel that the gross is powerful, but the mind, which is subtler than the body, has created the modern world that we see, where steel birds fly, and you have a phone and you have Zoom calls and all that. So all that is the play of the subtler aspect of us, which is the mind. So the subtler you go, the more powerful you become. So work towards your own life, work towards improving your the way you respond to this world, the way you can help others, make a life, a better life for themselves. That's the way to enrich your life, and that will give you the yogyata, the ability to become one with what you truly love, and excel at it and live a beautiful life. So that's very important. The esoteric and the more mystical aspects of yoga, remove that mysticism. Let's know that it is in the realm of the possibility for each and every one of us.
So this brings us to the rapid fire round. So which is that one word that comes to you when you hear these words? Just one word. Body.
Body is your scientific laboratory. It's the laboratory using which you understand the world, through both listening to other scientists who are around you, as well as doing your own experiments.
Okay. So body is laboratory. Breath.
Breath is the tool. Without that tool, you cannot conduct any experiment.
Mind.
Mind is the one who tells you what experiments to do. You need to, that is the one, in fact, I will say that the mind is the subject of all your experiments. It is the key subject of all your experiments.
Memory.
Memory is what helps you do those experiments. Memory is what ensures that you keep going forward. It's like the brakes, in a car. So somebody asked, what are the most important, what is the most important thing in a car that enables you to drive the fastest? And he said, it's brakes. And this guy was surprised, and he said, why brakes? He said, if I cannot stop the car, I'll never go fast. So, your intellect, your thing and all it plays these roles. Memory plays that role. Sometimes if you keep pressing on the brakes, you'll never go anywhere. So memory, don't be stuck in it, but make use of it to move fast.
And intellect.
Intellect is what tells you whether the experiment has been successful or not.
What about ego?
Ego is that which separates you from the rest. It gives you that beautiful illusion that you're separate from someone else, that this is you and what is not you. It gives you that discrimination.
And seer.
Seer is all this. Whatever we spoke of till now, is nothing but the seer in various different forms. So Gurudev explains this very beautifully. He says it's like a laser light show. So you have all sorts of characters in that show, but the laser light is exactly the same.
That one word.
Scenery is everything. Everything is only the scenery. Finally, it's the self has manifested as the scenery. It's like the eternal game of the seer. So, scenery is nothing but, as Gurudev beautifully says, it is nothing but all of matter, all of what we see in this world is nothing but consciousness crystallized. So it is crystallized consciousness is the scenery. It's only there, as Patanjali says, it's there only to bring you back to the seer. That's its sacred duty.
So Niranjan ji, with this, we come to the end of this session. And thank you so much for answering all our questions with so much detail and different analogies so that the common people understand. I absolutely loved when you said that yoga is not something that you sit in a cave and do.
Yeah.
We can carry that tool wherever we go and get into ourselves. So coming also I loved how you mentioned that Samadhi is that when the National Geographic photographer, he's waiting for years and years together in his tapasya and getting the perfect shot. Because I myself have watched a lot of Discovery Channel and all that. So I used to wonder how they get that perfect shot. So this way, yoga is that where we all that dirgha time we have to spend
dirgha
a lot
kala.
of patience and
in fact, if you
awareness.
True, and if you look at it, this can be used for every aspect of life, whatever you're doing. You never gain mastery over it till you don't have that dedication, that respect, that continuity, which is so important. Not doing it one day, sleeping over it for a few days. So even when you talk of these photographers who have done all these amazing works, pieces of work, we never look at their failures. So many things they would have failed. Somewhere
also
the experiments.
Don't need any personality crash courses. Also, just do yoga, Sudarshan Kriya, and meditation. And
Absolutely. You focus on that. Focus on these three things. Focus on your sadhana, because Gurudev always says that, the meaning of sadhana itself is sadhana. It means it's your own wealth. It is that which you will carry from lifetimes together. It is all these, even coming back to that issue of cravings, aversions, the vasanas, they are like creases on a cloth. And the sadhana is that ironing out process. Sometimes those creases are so bad. You've seen badly crumpled clothes and how difficult it is to iron them out, even if you have a very good iron. So it takes time. Sometimes you need to go through that process repeatedly, 4 times, 5 times, and finally it is in, it's in place the way you want it. So if you want a neat, well-ironed piece of cloth, and you need to remove all the crumples, the creases, and your yoga sadhana is that ironing process. It's that tool to help you, do the best out of life.
We feel so blessed that we have one guru who has given us everything in just one package.
Absolutely.
Just need to make use of it.
Yes. Yeah. And fortunate are the ones who have this guru in their life. Right? We are also fortunate, and I always feel so envious of these kids who have come into this at such a young age. We never knew at my teenage and all, I had no idea who Gurudev was. So if at all there is anything that I feel bad about, is that I didn't get onto this path much earlier. I knew Gurudev from another 20 years. Why just 16 years? Why not 36 years or 46 years old? So many people are lucky, and they shouldn't let go of this beautiful opportunity to make a very great improvement to their own lives and the lives of many others.
Thank you so much, Niranjan ji.
Thanks a lot,
spending this time with us and this beautiful knowledge with us.
Thank you so much. Jai.